Good evening and welcome to Nationwide, which is coming to you at this moment on NDTV from the capital of Bangladesh, Dhaka. I am Ankit Tyagi. My colleague Momin and me have been here in the country for almost a week, and today marked a significant day as far as Dhaka is concerned. It was a sea of people that we saw from all across the country who came to pay their tributes to former Prime Minister, the First Lady Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, who passed away yesterday at 6 a.m. in the morning. We tried to make our way to the burial ground. She was laid to rest next to her husband, former President General Ziaur Rahman. It was a sea of people, a bone-crushing sea of people that was going towards the parliament. Just opposite to that is the mausoleum of the former President General Ziaur Rahman, and right next to her, Khaleda Zia has been laid to rest, her final resting point. Leaders from across the world were in attendance, including Foreign Minister of India S. Jaishankar, who met Tarique Rahman, the acting chief of the BNP and son of Khaleda Zia, who now has the burden of taking the legacy forward of Khaleda Zia, his family, the Zia family, of course, one of the most prominent political dynasty here in Bangladesh. And with Khaleda Zia's death, a chapter has come to an end as far as politics of Bangladesh is concerned. 4 decades of her being in politics in the 80s, fighting against the military rulership, and then as democracy found its roots in Bangladesh in 1991, becoming the first woman and the first Prime Minister of Dhaka once the transition from the military dictatorship to democracy took place in the 90s. She and Sheikh Hasina were the two pillars of this politics. The battle of the Begums was something that was always spoken about. With her death and Sheikh Hasina in exile, that battle also comes to an end. On the last day of 2025, 31st December, as Bangladesh is looking for a new chapter, the chapter which had a huge impact on Bangladesh in the last 4 decades, the chapter of Khaleda Zia, came to an end today.
A chapter closes in Bangladesh's political history. Under grey skies and lowered flags, the nation bid farewell to Khaleda Zia, its first woman Prime Minister, a towering leader who shaped decades of power and protest. At 80, after long illness, Khaleda Zia was laid to rest with full state honours, beside her husband, former President Ziaur Rahman. Massive crowds gathered in the heart of capital Dhaka, many calling her Amma, or the mother of democracy.
Please,
as they braved tight security to pay their respects at the funeral prayers near the National Parliament. The farewell echoed far beyond Bangladesh's borders. Senior leaders from across South Asia arrived in Dhaka, reflecting Khaleda Zia's regional stature. Among them, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, who personally conveyed New Delhi's condolences, handing over a letter from Prime Minister Modi to her son and political heir Tarique Rahman. Once exiled, now leading the BNP, Tarique Rahman stood at the center of grief and responsibility.
আমি মরহুমা বেগম খালেদা জিয়ার বড় সন্তান তারেক রহমান। মরহুমা বেগম খালেদা জিয়া জীবিত থাকাকালীন অবস্থায় যদি আপনাদের কারো কাছ থেকে কোনো ঋণ নিয়ে থাকেন, দয়া করে আমার সাথে যোগাযোগ করবেন, আমি সেটি পরিশোধের ব্যবস্থা করব ইনশাআল্লাহ।
As prayers echoed through the capital, hundreds of thousands of supporters walked alongside her coffin, draped in the red and green of Bangladesh's flag. Supporters whispered prayers at the funeral prayer or namaz-e-janaza, praying for peace for Khaleda Zia as she began her final journey.
Millions of people, those who have covered every nook and corner of the streets here in Dhaka at this moment, performing the prayers, praying their tributes to Khaleda Zia. Many from BNP, others also normal, people, citizens.
From Dhaka's crowded streets to the quiet of her final resting place, this was more than a funeral. It was a moment of national reckoning. And as Bangladesh mourns a leader at a time of turmoil and violence, India watches cautiously as the country transitions into this new era. Could this mark a reset in ties between the two countries? Disha Bagchi for NDTV.
Bangladesh stands at the precipice of a very important election that is going to take place on February 12th. And at that point of time, after Khaleda Zia's death, the entire burden of the legacy and, of course, the responsibility of the BNP, the party which many believe is the frontrunner to win the upcoming elections, falls on Tarique Rahman. Once exiled, was for 17 years away from this country, just returned to Bangladesh 6 days back. Now firmly being established as the political heir and the supremo of the BNP, Tarique Rahman stares at a very crucial juncture of how Bangladesh will move forward post those elections, and also what shape does this country take in the days to come. Take a look at Tarique Rahman and, of course, the big responsibility that falls on his shoulders.
With the death of Khaleda Zia, an era ends, and a high-stakes battle for legacy, leadership and survival begins inside the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. For decades, Khaleda Zia was more than a former Prime Minister. She was the emotional core of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, a symbol of resistance, rivalry and relentless opposition to the ruling Awami League. As Bangladesh heads towards crucial elections in February, the BNP stands at a crossroads. All eyes are on her son, Tarique Rahman. Long seen as the heir apparent, Rahman now faces the weight of inheritance, not just of a party, but of a political movement built around his mother's name. For the BNP, Khaleda Zia's death may galvanize supporters, transforming grief into political momentum. But it also removes the party's most unifying figure, the leader who could command loyalty across factions and generations. Rahman, who has just returned from a 17-year exile, may now step out of his mother's shadow and convince voters that the BNP's future is not just nostalgia, but a credible alternative. The pressure is immense, but many polls suggest that the BNP will emerge victorious in the elections, with the student-led NCP likely to face an underwhelming result. There's little time for mourning and no room for missteps. Khaleda Zia's chapter has closed. The question now is whether her legacy becomes a launchpad or a burden for those she leaves behind. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV World.
One of the key failure for the Yunus interim government has been their inability to instill a sense of security in the minorities here in Bangladesh. As reports trickle in of another Hindu man being killed, this is in a series of attacks of arson, intimidation and brutal killings that are taking place in Bangladesh against the minorities, largely Hindus, and of course some incidents against Christian families as well. Now this raises a big question on not only the government but also the will and the intent of the government to secure and provide safety to the minorities. This also becomes the most important question that political parties and Bangladesh will have to answer in the upcoming elections, and post that, the shape that this country takes.
Atrocities in Bangladesh continue. Each passing day, we are seeing fresh brutalities. Bangladesh remains on edge. Protests, violence, vandalism, and mob killings. Deepu Das, a garment factory worker, brutally lynched by a mob in Mymensingh. Amrit Mondal, another Hindu man, beaten to death by a mob in Rajbari. A Hindu family's house set ablaze in Pirojpur. And according to local reports, another Hindu man, Bajendra Biswas, a member of Bangladesh paramilitary, shot dead in Mymensingh. No end to lawlessness in Bangladesh as minorities continue to be targeted. Will Yunus government finally spring to action? NDTV Bureau Report.
Let me very quickly at this moment go across to Pinak Ranjan Chakraborty, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh, to try and understand and make sense of the upheaval that we are seeing in this country, a change of guard, a change of leadership, a generational change that this country is saying. Thank you so much, Mr. Chakraborty, for speaking to me. I'm coming to you live from Dhaka, of course, the place where you must have spent so much time. Lot has changed in the last few months, especially after Sheikh Hasina was ousted. Today, when one end of that political pole for the last 4 decades has been laid to rest, how important do you see and the role that BNP and Tarique Rahman will have to play going forward?
It will be playing a big role, and it's quite clear that Tarique Rahman is going to take over the mantle of his mother. And this has been arranged because if you remember he has been convicted in all the cases that were against him. And so the Yunus regime actually has facilitated his return. Perhaps there is an agreement between them about something which we do not know, which will probably unfold later. And the BNP being the largest party now in terms of, because Awami League is out of the reckoning, has a very good chance of getting a majority in the parliament. If not a majority, then certainly the maximum number of seats, and then they can form a coalition. We don't know, but ultimately it will depend on the numbers, because on the other side, the main contender will be the Jamaat-e-Islami and the NCP, the Students' Party, which has joined hands with the Jamaat-e-Islami. So we have to wait and see what happens. But India has already reached out to Khaleda Zia, our external affairs minister, has been there to meet him. And so I think we are basically saying we want friendly, normal ties with whichever government that comes to power in Dhaka through a free, fair and democratic election. We would probably have preferred if it was inclusive.
Okay, High Commissioner Chakraborty, I want to very quickly ask you one thing, sir. Like you have been describing the situation, Khaleda Zia's reign was also seen, a lot of tussle between her and India. That's, of course, is part of history and something that Tarique Rahman, people would be, especially in India, would be looking at that at a time when anti-India sentiments are high here in Bangladesh. What do you make of Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar's visit, coming here, paying respects, handing over that letter to Tarique Rahman?
We must not forget that the anti-India feeling, though there was always a latent aspect to it in Bangladesh society, has been flanked by a plan with ISI, Jamaat-e-Islami all being part of it, including the Yunus regime. Now, this was basically to cater to the students and others who were clamoring, get Hasina back, etc. And the powers who were ruling wanted to deflect attention towards India. Look what happened to the killing of the young leader, Hadi. Now it's coming out that the so-called killer or the assassin is living in Dubai. But the government there quickly fanned the flames and said, no, he escaped to India. And the High Commissioner was called in and said, this is a clear plan to fan in anti-India sentiments. And I'm sure the ISI is doing it because only they benefit from it.
Right. So thank you so much for speaking to us at this moment on NDTV.